Hello everyone and welcome back to the Very Green Lockdown. Now today is all about composting, to continue on with our conversation about food waste from yesterday. Most of you will probably have a food caddy for composting under your local council scheme, like this one, which goes into a larger compost bin outside and gets collected every week. If you don't already have a food caddy as part of your local council pickup, then see if your council provides one and see if you can arrange it. But if you do have a garden, you can also do your own composting, and that's what I'm going to show you today. Okay, so back out into the garden, and I'm going to show you a bit about my composting area. I actually have 3 compost bins here. One of them I inherited when I bought the property, but the other 2 I bought. I don't use all 3 yet. But the third one that I'm not using at the moment, which is this one, I'm probably actually going to use to grow potatoes in this year because it's so deep. So that will make another use out of it. But you can get compost bins reasonably cheap. If you go to your local council, quite often they have discount schemes on things like compost bins. So let's have a look at them. So I've just opened this one up. I do need to work on my composting. It's the first year I've done it. I'm still working through it. You generally need, they say that you need a mix of brown stuff and green stuff slowly layered up in the compost bin to create good compost. And things should be cut quite small, so I haven't done a very good job here, but I will have to come back and cut these up smaller. And that gives the right chemical releases to create the perfect compost mix. You also need to make sure that the bottom is touching the ground and there's nothing at the bottom to stop the earth from moving up, so that you can get bugs and insects and worms mainly to come in, make their tunnels and leave the excrement behind, which actually helps with the composting process. You can see some bugs that have already got on here, some slugs. So I'm going to carefully put the soap back over. It's also useful to keep it fairly wet but not actually drenched, so you want to have the lid on and occasionally add water during dry times of the year. And then all of these compost heaps do actually have little doors which you can open up and get your fresh compost out when it's ready. I think it takes between about 6 to 12 months to create a compost heap, and there are some rules with composting, like you shouldn't add meat because that attracts rats, and you shouldn't add acidic stuff or bread, just mainly vegetable peelings, grass clippings, spent flowers, dried leaves, things like that. Nothing too big. And if you also don't actually need a proper bin like this, you could just make it out of pallets or something similar. Some people just put posts and then chicken wire around it. Just have it piled up somewhere basically. Okay, so the other type of composting, which I'm quite excited to show you, is called vermiculture or worm composting, a worm farm, which I have here. This basically involves buying one of these little worm farms, and then you stack trays on it over time. Trays that look like this, that you then fill with earth from the garden, and you get some special worms. I've got tiger worms, and then let them do their thing. You put in every couple of weeks or so. It doesn't need to be very often. Just some vegetable peelings, nothing too stinky, just like, say, a bit of lettuce, a bit of potato peeling, stuff like that. And they will slowly make you new compost, and over time you will have a really good source of compost, best quality compost you can get, and it would be really good for your fruit and veg. So we're going to have a look. Now, there's one little wormy. They have been really active recently, but now it's got a bit colder. They have started slowing down as they've got a bit cold. You can put bubble wrap around them. I keep mine in the shed during the winter, but when it gets really hot in the summer, I put it out in the garden under the tree where it's shaded, because you want them to stay fairly room temperature. Some people actually keep them in their house, but I haven't got that passionate about it yet to keep them in my house. Plus my house isn't big enough. So as you can see, I've got quite a lot of food in here at the moment. I probably put too much food, but I just went a bit crazy at one point, so it started to get moldy. It doesn't really matter if it gets that moldy, but you do need to make sure you keep the lid on it because you don't want to trap flies and things. But you can see, this is quite interesting, that when you lift it up, you do get some heat out of it. And also it tends to be that the worms, there they are, will hide right underneath the food because that's where it's most warm, and they get a meal on top of that. Just put that back. You don't want to be digging around for the worms too much because they have made really intricate tunnels within this earth. So really you just want to build it up and build it up, and then as you get really high up you can take away the bottom trays and start filtering those out to use for your garden compost. So we'll put him back nicely. So that's my worm compost farm. I do call them my little pets because they're the only pets I can have in my small property. So you have to make do with what you can. I hope you guys found that interesting and learned a little bit more about composting. I'll put some more information in the description below, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Remember to hit subscribe.